So it's still Albaz season, and even just saying that seems odd. Most structure decks are worthy of about 1 or 2 videos at best, but this one is the gift that keeps on giving. While last time I talked about how good it made the Buster Blader deck, this time it's Dragonmaids who'll be receiving a huge upgrade thanks to this structure deck. Now, since I explained what makes the structure deck's new cards so good in the last video, I won't dwell on it too long, but just to be as brief as possible, Branded Fusion is a broken fusion spell, and Mirrorjade is a broken fusion monster. It's almost starting to look like a pattern, isn't it? But if you think this deck is going to be an entire deck profile just to tell you to activate Branded Fusion and pass, you're dead wrong. In fact, Branded Fusion is actually optional in this deck. Well, I mean, we still run it since it's so good, but what matters is that this time it isn't actually a necessary part of any of your combos. So no need to shell out a few hundred on an Alba to act as a searcher for it. In fact, there's no need for any particularly expensive cards in this version of the deck. So how does that work? Well, let's go back a little to explain. So we all know Fallen of Albaz, right? He was released alongside the original wave of Dogmatica cards, but unlike them, went almost completely ignored. He got a bunch of different forms, and cards that technically worked with him, but nobody ever bothered to actually use him. And then when he finally got an entire structure deck based on him, well, people will be using him alright. Using him as the new most popular Garnet. Poor Albaz, he just can't seem to stand out as anything other than a card that we immediately bin and then shuffle back into the deck, as if we were ashamed of him being in our deck in the first place. However, it's not like his effect is bad. In fact, if you read it, it's pretty good. Basically, on summon, he's a spell speed 2 super poly, letting you use himself and an opponent's monster as a material for a fusion summon. Back when Titaniclad was our only option for that, it wasn't great, but now we have disgustingly powerful cards like Mirrorjade, so it's way more appealing. So why am I talking about Albaz in a Dragonmaid deck? Well, if you listen to the non-believers, also known as competitive players, Dragonmaids are known to basically just make a spheres and pass their turn. While before, that play could lead to something like summoning a nurse from the deck, reviving something else, and then slowly gaining advantage over a few turns. Now, a single spheres results in 3 powerful interruptions. The bounce from the spheres itself, then Albaz super polying an extra deck monster away, and finally the banish from Mirrorjade. Suddenly, Spheres Pass is a powerful endboard in itself, but building the deck in the way I have for this video, you're actually doing a lot more than just that. There's a fairly high chance you'll be backing up the spheres with Shio's Omni Negate or House's Battle Phase Pops, helping you protect the spheres, and then, thanks to a Dragon Link engine, spheres will not only be easier to make, but you'll also be getting draws and searches off of it, making you even more likely to be able to go into a fusion, or even to add a Borreload Savage Dragon to your end board. And if all else fails, well, yeah, just activate a Branded Fusion. That's good too. So here's the deck itself. Since you're running 3 engines in this deck, I'll go over them one by one, starting with the Dragonmaids. You only run 3 high-level Dragonmaids, being 2 Earnest and 1 Lawpar, although you can probably get away with only 1 Earnest. She's mostly there because her effect can sometimes help you extend through interruption, while Lawpar is there to get a high-level dragon in the graveyard when reviving Parlo as Hospitality, and its effect is sometimes useful too. Then for the low levels, I run the fairly standard ratios of 3 Chamber and 3 Parlour, then 2 Kitchen and 1 Nurse. It's the standard core of the deck, so it works like it always has in Dragonmaids, except that you're even more likely to make a Striker Dragon with your normal summon in this version of the deck, so Nurse is a bit more useful. You could try 2 Nurse and 1 Kitchen instead, if you end up finding that more useful for the extending it provides. For the back row, run the usual 3 Tidying and 3 Hospitality, but with 2 Changeover. Why run 2 of that? Well, you're trying to combo a bit harder than in most Dragonmaid decks this time, so Chamber Search is often good to spend on Hospitality instead. It basically just frees up her search if you draw it, but since it does recycle itself, 3 was just too many copies. So the first half of the deck is all Dragonmaids, which I'd say is definitely enough for this to not just be Dragon Link Light. However, they do benefit from a few Dragon Link cards, so these are the ones we run. To start off, 3 Noctovision is great in this deck. After normal summoning any Dragonmaid, make a Striker Dragon, searching a boot sector launch, and then summon this, make a Spheres, and get another draw. It's a ton of advantage for your Link plays, but also if you're going to Fusion Reach with Branded Fusion, it's a high level dragon that'll help you make Sheer. Overall, it's well worth running. Then run 2 Rocket Tracer and then one of any of the level 4 rockets, which in this case was Silver Rocket because, well, I think it looks the coolest, and a whole Silver Bullet to the opponent's extra deck is a fun effect to theoretically have, even if you'll never actually be using it. Back those up with 3 Quick Launchers, which is still an incredibly broken card, either getting your Spheres way more easily, or even in some cases being a free Borreload Savage Dragon. This of course goes with Boot Sector Launch, which you'll search with Striker Dragon. This engine gives you a ton of advantage, even if you don't actually use Tracer's quick effect, and the field spell means that even if you draw them without using Quick Launch, any Dragonmaid can become a Striker Dragon, get the field spell and then summon them. This engine makes the deck way more explosive, and gives you backup options even if your original plan gets interrupted. Finally, we move on to the Branded package. This time it's pretty small, consisting only of 2 Albaz, 2 Incredible Ecclesia, and 2 Branded Fusion. Like I mentioned in the intro, this deck focuses way more on making Mirrorjade on your opponent's turn, rather than building up your board on your own turn. This is because making Spheres is often your top priority, and Branded Fusion does conflict with that. You could even run it at 1 if you wanted to, but it's such a strong card that 2 seemed like a good middle ground. The 2 Albas are here so that you can summon one with Spheres for a super poly-like effect on your opponent's turn, with another one in case you banish the first one was Albion. The 2 Incredible Ecclesias are an optional but nice package to have. They help the deck go second by essentially forcing out an interruption, either by threatening to summon an Albaz and fuse something of your opponent's away, or just by being a level 4 tuner to make something strong together with Chamber or Silver Rocket. To finish up the main deck, run a World Legacy Guard Dragon as an extender, and then 3 Ash Blossoms. To run 3 more hand traps, consider cutting the second Urnus, the Guard Dragon, and a second Changeover. That will free up room if you want to run something like Ghost Ogre to help deal with the Adventurer package. So while the main deck has some room for debate on certain ratios, the extra deck is a lot simpler to go through. While it's mostly fusions, the links and synchros you do have are very important, so it's not really a pure fusion deck. To start with those fusions though, run 2 of each Dragonmaid, then 2 Mirrorjade, 1 Nubellion, 1 Titaniclad, 1 Albion, and 1 Borreload Furious Dragon. Being a Dragonmaid deck with their recyclable fusion spell, you don't want to only be able to go through that line of play once, hence the 2 of each Dragonmaid. Mirrorjade is incredibly powerful, so you want to have a second one just in case. Nubellion and Albion both help get to it, but 1 of each is probably enough. Titaniclad is here mostly as an Albaz target to deal with your opponent's boss monsters that aren't extra deck monsters, since it only needs a high attack stat on them to be a suitable material. Next are your 2 synchros, Chaos Ruler and Borreload Savage Dragon. Chaos Ruler can either help extend, or most likely help you unbrick hands that didn't have enough Dragonmaids. I'll show an example of that soon, but just know that the milling effect is just as useful as the card that it adds. Then Savage Dragon is a fairly easy to make negate, as long as you make it after doing Striker into Spheres. Using a quick launch at the end of your combo is usually enough to make it, since you'll have a boot sector to destroy, getting you everything you need without sacrificing any of your plays. Finally, your links. Run 2 Spheres since they're key to this deck's success, and then a Striker Dragon since it's by far the best link one for your Dragonmaids and results in free advantage. So that's the deck, now to show it to you in action. So, combo time! But first, if you've been enjoying the video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. To kick this off, here's an example of what you can do with any normal summon and an extender. I chose Nurse since it's the most useless in this situation, and then Noctovision because it's very easy to use. Just normal a Dragonmaid, and then make a Striker Dragon. That will get you a Boot Sector launch, which could also be an extender, or like in this case, just be used to pay a discard cost. That also summons the Noctovision, letting you go into Spheres and then draw another card. Although this combo does work even without that draw. Now we just wait for our opponent to get at least 2 monsters on the field, one of which is ideally an extra deck monster. Here we'll go with the 2 fusions and a nurse. We can start by tributing Sphere, sending something back to the hand. That will trigger in the graveyard, getting you a Fallen of Albaz. On summon, he'll trigger to discard a card, fusing away your opponent's extra deck monster into a Mirrorjade. Now if your opponent still has a monster on board, you can use a Mirrorjade to send a Titanic Lad to banish their monster. That will even get you another Fallen of Albaz in the end phase, which could be useful next turn. So from a single Spheres you got 3 interruptions, an extra deck monster with a field wipe if it's removed, and then another material for next turn. This is why Spheres is the top priority for the deck most of the time. Next up is a quick replay to show Ecclesia's use, since it's hard to show off without an opponent. Going second, as long as they have a monster, you can summon her and then tribute her for an Albaz at the cost of a card. If their monster is an extra deck monster, you can go straight into Mirrorjade for more pressure. This line of play also triggers a Noctovision if you happen to have one, which could result in another draw. What's even better is that you haven't actually used your normal summon yet, nor have you locked yourself into fusions, so you still have a ton of options to keep putting pressure on your opponent's board. Now for some test hands. For this first one, summon Chamber to search Changeover, which you can just use straight away to protect you from Nibiru or anything else like that. You can then quick launch into a Rocket Tracer, and then use Hospitality on the Parlor you used for your fusion, who then sends a Tidying. Immediately use the Tidying on Ernest, allowing you to make a Spheres. You can now bounce back Chamber with Changeover, letting you fuse again to make a House Dragonmaid, which will result in more Dragonmaids in the next standby phase. As well as meaning that your opponent won't be able to just run over Spheres by normal summoning and going straight into the battle phase. The destruction effect triggered from your Dragonmaids transforming will take care of that threat easily enough. This second test hand is interesting, since we start with a pretty mediocre hand with 2 hospitalities but with no actual Dragonmaids. But we can fix this. Quick launch into Tracer, and then just normal summon your Silver Rocket. That lets you synchro summon into Chaos Ruler, will excavate 5. It adds a Noctovision, but also mills a Chamber Dragonmaid which we can revive as Hospitality. That triggers the Noctovision to summon itself, as well as search Changeover. Those 2 make a Spheres while drawing you a card that happens to be an Ernest. That will allow you to make Shio with your Changeover. While not necessary, you can then banish a Light and a Dark to get a Chaos Ruler back, giving you an extra 3000 attack on board, as well as the usual interruptions from Spheres and Shio. Finally, I thought I should show you a test hand where you actually use Branded Fusion while going first. Here we actually have 2 of them even. We can use the first one to send an Albaz and a Chamber Dragonmaid to the graveyard, making a Lubellion who'll discard the second one to make a Mirrorjade with Albaz and itself. Since we got Chamber into the graveyard, we can revive her by normal summoning Nurse, and she'll search Tidying for more interruptions next turn. However, since we're lacking a high level dragon, besides Mirrorjade which we want to keep, we can first use Changeover to make a Borreload Furious Dragon with the Albaz and a Chamber, both being dark, and then finally bounce back the Nurse in order to get the fusion spell back and fuse once again, getting a Shio to back up our Mirrorjade. Since we have a set Tidying and Shio standby phase effect, it totals up at 3 powerful interruptions that are all very different to each other, which should allow you to tackle most incoming decks. So that's the deck. Do you think it will finally make Dragonmaids competitive? Tell me in the comments below, and while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe. Special thanks to my tier 2 patrons Jason Moa and Violet Rain. The link to that is in the description. Thanks for watching!